Hello again. This video we're going to talk about working with embroidery files, not SVGs. Embroidery files being after you have made your drawing in SVG in Inkscape, and then you save it as a DST or a PES, DEF, whatever. Same thing applies to if you download a embroidery file from, say, Etsy, that you purchased from Etsy, and then you want to work with it in Inkstitch. It really doesn't work well. So this video is also going to show why I emphasize that you need to, when you're working with Inkscape, you need to save your work as an SVG every single time for every single edit. And then every single time you're going to save it as SVG and then save as your embroidery file every single time, every single edit. Because using Inkstitch to work with embroidery files is not a fun time. It's not what it's designed to do. It is designed to work with SVGs in Inkscape and convert those pictures into stitch patterns. Inkscape doesn't understand stitch patterns, and the only reason we can load up embroidery files is because of Inkstitch, and it does. The way that it loads up embroidery files is the same exact way your machine will open up an embroidery file. It's just nothing but a file of positions and stitches and trims. So position A, or line A, move to this position, stitch. Line 2, move to this position, stitch. Line 3, move to this position, stitch. You get the idea. So when you're working with an embroidery file, you have to keep in mind that Inkstitch is not designed to work with embroidery files. It is designed to create embroidery files. I'm going to show you an extreme example. What I've done here is, this is a SVG. I know it says DST. That's because my last save of it was a DST, but this is an SVG file. So I'm going to show you an example. If I select this and I go extensions, Inkstitch, params, we're looking at the stitch count, which is right now 5,171. So I'm going to quit. I'm going to apply and quit. I'm going to file, save as DST, it's already there, and replace. And then we're going to, this is the previous one, close out, save, and then now I'm going to open up the DST that I just saved. All embroidery files basically work the exact same way, so it doesn't matter if it's a DST or a PES or something like that. So this DST file, if I do params, I should end up with the same number of stitches. 5,170, exactly the same number. And to make my point even more, this embroidery file, this .dst, we are going to do a visual realistic preview. We're going to look at this before I show you the extreme example of why Inkstitch is not good to work with embroidery files. So what I'm going to do is select realistic right here. And having selected realistic, it's got a nice fill to it. It looks completely filled in. It's got a nice fill to it. So uncheck that, close that out, put me back on. Okay. So what we're going to do to really push the point across, what we're going to do is I'm going to change this. I'm going to double the size of this. And it's originally a 2-inch. So width 2-inch, height 2-inch, 2-inch square. I'm going to change this to a 4. I'm going to make this I'm going to double the size, make it a 4x4 inch. And 4x4. Okay. So the number of stitches was 5,170. What's the number of stitches now? Is it double? No, it's 4 times. So we're going to params. 5,170, double the size becomes 19,654. Important number to remember. Okay. Quit. Apply and quit. Okay, we're good. Now, this particular, this is also a 2x2. Change that back to inch. Roughly 2x2. It's pretty close. And what I'm going to do, no, wrong one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing with this one. 4x4. 5,170 stitches. We're going to also make this one a 4x4. Okay. And that's close enough. It's making a rough estimate based on inches. So it's close enough. Roughly 4 inch by 4 inch. Number of stitches, 19,000, what was it? I don't remember. 19,000 something. When we go to extensions, Inkstitch params, and we look at the number of stitches, we still have 5,070. We doubled the size of the object, but the number of stitches is the same. What do you think this is going to look like in a realistic preview? Extensions Inkstitch, visualize, realistic preview. There's our realistic preview, or there's our preview. Now, realistic. Not so good, Al. Not so good, Al. So, this is why I emphasize so hard. Save your file as a SVG first and every single time. Because if you don't save that SVG and you're left with the embroidery file only, and then you have to edit it, this is what happens. Now, granted, this is a bit of exaggerated example. Most of the time, you're not going to double the size of your image, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to showcase here. That Inkstitch is not designed to work with embroidery files. You can load them, you can do stuff with them. So, what can you do with an embroidery file? Well, I'm going to set this back to 2x2. That every time. 2x2. Now we have our original 2 inch by 2 inch square. We're back to it being correct. You can add things to it. You can come in here and go Inkstitch lettering. Let's do something I don't usually do. You can add embroidery objects to it. And I would never size down this particular font as much as I'm doing here. I'm doing this for demonstration purposes only. But I can add this to it. So now I have the original color block, and now I also have the lettering. This will work. I can save this. I can oversave this as the DST that it already is. And I'm going to go ahead and close that out, and we'll open it back up. So now our drawing DST has some extra embroidery objects to it. Now this is what the object looks like, and everything's going to look fine. Don't size down that font that much. But there it is. And once again, I'll do the realistic preview. Everything looks fine. So let's get into a little bit more detail now. Let us close that one out. Close. Bring the original back up. Let's delete that. 4x4. Okay, we'll leave that. Let's go in here and extensions, Inkstitch, lettering. Let's do something different. I was using that original square was a 2, right? So let's go with I want to see what that one looks like. That's pretty neat. I've actually never really paid attention to that. I like that. Hit apply. Whoa, that's huge. Okay, let's make it a different one. Now, just for the record, you can select your lettering text, and you can change it just by selecting lettering. Didn't know if you know that already, but yeah, you can do that. Pretty handy. Let's change it to something else. Let's go with that one. That'll work. That's much better. Okay, so I have this. We're going to save this as an embroidery file. Okay, drawing DST. We can handle it. We can do that. Save, replace. Let's bring that up. So by saving it as an embroidery file and then loading the embroidery file, it's the same idea as if you bought the embroidery file off of Etsy. It's a previously created embroidery file. So if I go in here and select my nodes tool, and we're going to look at all the nodes. Holy smokes. Now these nodes, the reason there's so many of them is because these are individual stitch points. The Inkstitch is reading this the same exact way that your embroidery file would, or embroidery machine would, by stitch points. So Inkstitch is interpreting each command of the embroidery machine into a node. So in other words, somewhere in the file it says move to this point right here and stitch. So Inkstitch creates a node. And then it says, okay, now move to this point and stitch. Inkstitch creates a node. So that's why you have so many nodes here. There's a lot. Now, when you're looking at this embroidery file as interpreted by Inkstitch, now you remember when I saved it, it was a lettering tool, so it's a satin stitch. Embroidery machine doesn't know what a satin stitch is. An embroidery machine doesn't know what a fill stitch is, and an embroidery machine doesn't know what a running stitch is, or an E-stitch, or any of those other stitches. It's all in the embroidery file telling the machine, go here, stitch, go here, stitch, go here, stitch. The satin stitch and the running stitch are all done in the software that creates that embroidery file. The machine doesn't know satin stitches and such. The machine only knows my commands are to go here and stitch, go here and stitch. That's the only thing machine knows. So when you're working with this, you can't select it and then say, oh, instead of this being a satin stitch, I wish it was something else. Can't do that. You can't select this and then go to extensions, Inkstitch commands, and attach a command and tell it to set a satin cut point, because this is not a satin stitch anymore. Tool satin, cut satin column. Please select one or more satin columns to cut. I only have one satin column. It's that object right there. And it's the original lettering that I made from a satin column. So if this is going to work, I have to select this, which is the original satin column. Let's try it again. Extensions, Inkstitch, Tool Satin, Cut Satin Column. Place select one or more satin columns. As far as Inkstitch knows, there is no satin column in this design right here. There is no satin column. And the command is just an attached marker. That's all it is. And it's waiting for you to move that marker to a satin stitch. But there is no satin stitch to work on. So it's very limited what you can do. Let's go in here. Let's really try to do something. I want to cut this T in half right here. So what would we do? Provided that the limited examples of what I told you, we would go in here and we would select that node and split it. So now there's 2 spots there. Okay, we're going to do the same thing with that one. And now we've pulled that one away. We're going to do the same thing with that one. Pull that one away. And we're going to do the same thing with that one. Pull that one away. And I've already done that one. So now I have to do this one. I'm going to run this down to here. We're going to cut that. Move that up. But we have, for all purposes, we have cut this satin column. So what happens if we run it? Find out. I can't select just the T. And if it was truly separate, I would be able to select the top of the T or the bottom of the T. But since that's not the case, then what does a break apart do? Will a break apart make 2 separate trees? Path, break apart. Oh, look how many objects we have now. This is interesting. Now, if I select that one, it is the bottom of the T. Neat. Select that one. It is basically nothing. So let's delete that one. We really don't need that one. Okay, that one's been deleted. What is that one? That is the bottom of the T. Okay, top of the T. Now, why is it bottom of the T, but also bottom of the T? What happened there? Interesting. What about object? Oh, object is the first half. Okay, so now we're starting to get the idea that we might be able to cut pieces away. This would be a little easier if it didn't have so much of an understitching, but you're starting to get the idea. You can manipulate certain parts of this. Okay. Now just for example, let's go ahead and I'm going to delete the entire top of that T and that part too. What am I left with? I am left with, let's go to the nodes tool so I can really see here. That part. Okay, so part of that. Okay, so that is my straight line for the understitch. I'm going to delete just that part. Okay, what's next? Path. That is the zigzag underneath. I'm going to delete that part too. Okay, so now we have, come on. Yep, there it is. Now, Inkscape's usually pretty good about backing up. Let's see if it kept it. Open recent, it is not there. I have no backup. I have to start completely over. And we will. I mean, I'll do this again. So I want to cut the T in half. We're going to select the nodes tool. We're going to pick a point in here somewhere. And I'm going to do this in multiples. So I'm going to press the shift button to select multiple nodes, and then go in here and split those multiple nodes. Now I should be able to pull those multiple nodes apart. Basically, yes, but not going to be pretty about it. So we're going to move this one up, this one up, this one down, this one up, this one down, up. So you can, again, you can work with individual nodes. All you're doing is adjusting the nodes. This is something that Inkscape is known for. This is what Inkscape does. Inkscape works with nodes. So once we've done that, in order to be able to work with the separate objects, we need to break apart. So path, break apart. I'm going to show you another trick here in just a minute too. So right now we have that part. We have that, which we had before. I'm going to delete it. We have that, which is, I want to keep that. Yeah, let's keep that part and we'll get rid of the top of the T. Yeah, let's do that. We're going to get rid of that top of that T. We're going to leave the bar though. And then we're going to go in here, we're going to select the bottom portion and we're going to pull these back down. Put them back a little closer together. Okay, so we've done that. So I have that, and that, and that. That part we're going to get rid of, and that. And we're going to get rid of just that part. So there's that. And that, and that. Okay, so I want it to do the low, and then the middle, and then the rest. So I'm going to select that one first. Remember, stitching happens from bottom up. So if I want low to be first, I need it to be on the bottom. But and it's just a matter of I could move it down 2 spots. But what if I had 600 lines? So I'm going to select that one. I'm going to press the Control button, select that one and that one. Now I selected them in the order I want them to stitch. So let's go to Extensions, Inkstitch, Edit, Restack Objects in order of selection. Boom. Worked like a charm. Now my first object, bottom up, is low. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Extensions, let's do a troubleshoot. Let's see what troubleshoot gives us. All shapes are valid. Outstanding. And let's have a look. Zoom it. So there's my edited parts right there. Edited it like a charm. And we'll do a realistic. Now that the part I edited out doesn't really have an understitching where the rest of it does, but it looks fine. You can do certain things. Working with nodes, you can work all day long with nodes in Inkscape. It has no problem with that, because that's what it does. All right, let's get rid of that. Okay, I did get asked a question, and I'm gonna zoom this out a little bit. I did get asked the question of putting on stop points, and specifically, let's get rid of that, and let's get rid of that. So now I'm working with low, and low is one object. Yeah, it's one object. The machine doesn't know that this is separate objects, so you can't create a stop point for whatever you might need a stop point for. What was it he was wanting to know? I don't remember. But he needed a stop point for some reason. I don't remember what it was. But he had a previously embroidered word, and he needed to know how to create a stop point. You can do that with what I just showed you. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to zoom in so I can see these things. I'm going to grab that one and cut it, and it comes down to here. I'm going to grab that one and cut it, and that one and cut it, and that one. Okay, so we have these cut. We should have some separate pieces here. Yep, just like that. just like that. Now these I might get rid of, and that one goes there, that one up there. Okay, so you don't necessarily want to just start deleting nodes. You don't really want to do that. So I'm going to take these nodes and bring them down here and try to cover that up just a little bit, something like so. Okay, so that node right there is by itself. So we can get rid of that one. And then this node here. And we're going to pull these down just to make them come together a little bit more. Be careful how much of a gap that you leave, because that is a gap in the stitching. But this should be pretty good. I do have it, yeah, I have it separated there. Okay, so there's one. And then we're going to come in here. Oh, we're going to come in here and do the same thing on this little extension here. So there. And there. That's not part of that and that and that. Okay, I need to go here, and I need to go here. So I should be able to pull that apart, and that one. Those are all part of that, so that's not the same. And then that, and then that. Just like that. So perfect. Now, when I do a break apart, path, break apart, definitely more than I thought it was going to end up with, but might not be a problem. Let's see what we have. The W is first. Why? W. Why not? Right? And then path. And then path. A lot of this is understitching also. And some of this you might be able to do without. Okay, so same thing. I want it to stitch in the not alphabetical order. I want it to stitch in the order that the letters are written. So L, that part of the O, nope. Start over. L, bottom part of the L. And that could be the undersew. Let's see if that's the undersew. Nope, that's the over. Okay. So that one, that one, that one, that one. Not that one. That one, then that one, and then that one, and then that one. That's the order I want it to stitch in. Extensions, Inkstitch, edit, restack. So now we should be outstanding. Dare I say it. Okay, so you can put, I want to do a trim at the end of the L, which is that one. Let's do that. Extensions, Inkstitch, params. Come out here. Now, everything, when you're working in an embroidery file, everything's a running stitch. Again, we made this as a satin stitch. When you reload it as an embroidery file, everything is a running stitch. Keep that in mind. Don't try to change it. Running stitch. That's it. Leave it that way. Okay. So at the end of it, let's do a trim after. Apply and quit. And then we're going to pull this apart ever so slightly so that if it doesn't trim, it's going to tell on me that I didn't do it right. Okay, so let's have a look at the whole thing, and we should get that trim after the L. Realistic preview. Let's see what happens. Bingo. No jump. Like a charm. So that's how you work with embroidery files. You have to do it. You have to rethink. You have to think like a machine. Data. Now you're going to become data. I'd like to become data sometimes. You have to think in terms of everything's a node and everything's a running stitch. You can manipulate nodes. You can cut nodes away. Once you separate nodes into different places, you can break those apart. And now you have two different objects that have a running stitch. And remember, everything's a running stitch. Very important. That's working with embroidery files. It's not something that Inkstitch is designed to do. When you load an embroidery file, it is all running stitch. Your fills, your running stitch, your satin stitches, they are all seen as a running stitch. And to kind of go back on the resizing thing, don't resize a previously embroidery file. Don't resize it more than much about 10%, 15%, depending on if it's big and you're keeping it big. If it's small and you're going 10% smaller, you might have issues. Think about it too, that the extreme example that I showed you, if you go, I went from a 2-inch block to a 4-inch block, and it still only had 5,000 stitches. If I'd have took that 2-inch block and went down to a 1-inch block, that 1-inch block would still have 5,000 stitches. That's not good. Your machine's not going to like it. Probably going to break threads. Possibly you could break needles. It's going to be one massive, dense mess is what you're going to have. So resize it. About 10% is all you can do. Think of everything as running stitches. You can cut nodes. You can break apart. Once you cut those nodes, you can break it apart. Work with the break apart objects. I hope I've answered some questions. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Just comment down below this video, and I'll be happy to answer anything that you have. And if I don't know it right then, I'll see if I can figure it out. But that's going to be all for this video. And as always, thank you so much for watching.